and as I like to call her, the Democratic Party's resident badass. Please join me in welcoming Governor Jennifer Granholm.
Because you hear the people sing. I am serious. The people are pissed off. And I hope you are too. So I am so pleased to be able to welcome you as well into the arena. I'll start by telling you why I ran for office. Because I was one of the 42% of you who was always helping someone else run for office. And I had been a federal prosecutor, and I had run a big county public law office. And the people with whom I had worked on local and state campaigns came to me when the Attorney General of Michigan decided not to run. He had been in office for 36 years. He was called the Eternal General. And when he decided not to run, they said, well, they, meaning people in the party with whom I'd worked, came to me and said, you should run. You've got civil experience, you've got criminal experience, you're a fresh face. I was 39 at the time. And I said, are you on crack? I have 3 children. My youngest was 10 months old at the time. There is no way, but I'm happy to help you find somebody else to do it. So I go home that night and I say to my husband, you cannot believe what Ron just asked me. He said I should run for Attorney General. And I said, and Dan said, what? Are you on crack? No, he didn't say that, but he said, you absolutely should run. He said, I got the kids. Don't worry about it. Woo! We are going to do this. And then he said something that was really important, which is this. He said, you have been all of your life focused on wanting to be the voice of the little guy. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer at law school. I wanted to really have an impact on people who didn't have a megaphone. He said, this will be the place where you can represent people who have no voice. So I thought about that and thought, do I have a responsibility to do something beyond self? Do I have a responsibility to give back when an opportunity presents itself? I'd never run for anything. The first time I had ever put myself out there, it was totally scary. But I did it, and I won. And when I was Attorney General, well, let me just stop right there for 1 second. I'm going to be around later after the program ends tonight, and I'm going to be around a little bit. And I hope that I get a chance to talk to some of you. And if I ask you who are thinking about running, why do you want to run? I hope that you don't say, I want to run because I would be a great candidate. I hope you do not say, I want to run because I can raise money. Or I want to run because I'm a good speaker. I want you to say, I want to run because it's not about me. Because it's about something beyond me. Because it's about them, right? It's about something you are passionate about fixing. It's not about you. So I had a professor who who once said that never forget that you must answer a tuba with a tuba. You do not answer a tuba with a piccolo. In order for you to answer a tuba with a tuba, you have to be utterly persuaded yourself. You have to be authentic, and you have to feel something very deeply. And so the question for you is, what is that? What is that thing? When I was governor, I had a guy who was my body guy, as they call them. For those of you who've worked on campaigns, you know it's somebody who makes sure you get to a place on time, and they carry the scheduling book or your remarks or whatever. And his name was Jerome Marks. And Jerome would always make sure that there was extra time in the schedule so that he could bring me in the back way to events, and that I would be able to see the waiters and the waitresses in the kitchen, and the janitors, and the people who were doing security. And he would say to me, Gov, you cannot lead them if you do not see them. There is an expression in South Africa, an expression of greeting. It's called sawubona. Sawubona means I see you. And the response to that is sikona, which is I am here. You have to see the people that you want to lead in order to be an effective leader. So when I was Attorney General, I wanted to get kids away from a life of crime, or give kids who are in the juvenile justice system some hope. So I started a mentoring program and tried to get adults to mentor young kids who were either truant from school or were in the foster care system, but who needed a stable adult in their lives. And if I was going to do that, of course, I had to do it. I couldn't just talk about it. I had to mentor a child as well. And so I was teamed up with this little 8-year-old girl named Brittany. And she was, when we first met, she lived in the upper flat of a boarded up house in Detroit. And the mentoring agency had given her a list of things that you could do with a mentor. And they listed 50 things. You know, you want to go to a ball game, or you want to read, or do you want to, go to a museum or whatever. Brittany had checked off every single one of the 50 things on the list, because she so wanted someone to see her and to believe in her. Brittany and I are still together. She's 26 years old now. And her mother died of crack overdose. Her father was never in the picture. She was put into the foster care system in Michigan. I saw more stories than I can even begin to share with you, but it was that experience of me seeing her and what she was going through that caused me to want so badly to fix that. And when the position for governor became available, I was the only Democrat, but I, in state offices, statewide office, so I decided I would run because it was a motivator for me to want to fix this system. When I became governor, and the reason why I tell you this is because you have to either have gone through something yourself or have been part of seeing people in this situation. When I became governor, it was in 2002, as Jason said, and we were just coming out of a national recession, and Michigan was sort of the tip of the spear of the loss of manufacturing jobs. And because we were coming out of a recession, people said, oh, what a great time to be governor, because all these jobs will be created and you'll be able to take credit for it. Because we're at the end of the recession, right? People will start buying cars, etc. Well, at the beginning of 2003, I get a call from the guy who's head of our Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Nathan, where are you?
Right here.
Nathan Oley, who worked for the MEDC. He wasn't the guy who called me, but he knows what I'm talking about. And he said, we have a major problem, Gov. We have a little tiny community in Michigan called Greenville, and that Greenville is about to lose a huge refrigerator factory called Electrolux, owned by Electrolux. And I said, well, what's the population of Greenville? And he said, 8,000 people. And I said, well, how many people are working at the factory? He said, almost 3,000 people. This is a one-company town. And for those of you who are in manufacturing states, you know what I'm talking about. This town grew up around the refrigerator factory. And he said they're about to go to Mexico. And I said, what? There is no way. I'm the new governor, for Pete's sake. We're not going to allow a failure to happen on my watch. We're going to get the whole cabinet. We'll go to Greenville, and we will make Electrolux an offer they can't refuse. Not like a Chris Christie offer. So we go to Greenville, and we went to the city hall, and it's like the size of maybe the square right here, the city hall. So it's very charming little, and we all sat around. Every one of the grand poobahs of Greenville were there. The mayor was there, the head of the city council, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, the head of the UAW who represented the workers, everybody was there. So we all sit around the table, and we all decide that we are going to put an incredible amount of effort and incentives together to try to keep Electrolux in Greenville. So we basically kind of emptied our pockets of chips, you know, put our chips in a pile and slid the pile across the table to the management of Electrolux. And in the pile of chips were things like 0 taxes for 20 years. And we would help to rebuild the factory. And the UAW was willing to give so much in concessions, they didn't even want anybody to know how much they were willing to give. So Electrolux takes a list of incentives and walks outside the room for 17 minutes. And they come back in and they say, wow, this is the most generous that any community has ever been in trying to keep jobs. But there's nothing you can do to compensate for the fact that we can pay $1.57 an hour in Juarez, Mexico. So we're going. There's nothing you can do. This failure on my part hung around my neck for my entire 2 terms. But on the month that the last refrigerator came off the assembly line in Electrolux in Greenville, I went to a community gathering that they called the Last Supper. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway, because I, too, like them, was just grieving. And I went into this place. It was Clackle's Orchard Pavilion. It was a big place. There were thousands of people, all these Greenville residents there. It was like a community wake. Everybody was sitting around 8 top tables, eating out of box lunches. I go up to the first table, and this guy stands up, and he says, Gov, he says, I want you to meet my daughters. And he pulls his 2 teenage daughters next to him, and he says, he's got his baseball, his tiger cap on backwards. He's got tattoos. He's got a gruff voice, and he says, I am 48 years old. I've worked at this factory for 30 years. I went from high school to factory, he said. My father worked at this factory. My grandfather worked at this factory. All I know is how to make refrigerators. And he pulls his daughters in, and he puts his hand on his chest like this. He says, so, Governor, tell me, who is ever going to hire me? Who is ever going to hire me? And that question was asked by everybody in that room that day, and by everybody in one of the 62,000 factories that have left this country since the beginning of this century. That experience for me has seared my soul. My whole being is around how do we create good-paying jobs in America in a global economy. May you have an experience that sears your soul. May you have the opportunity to put yourself in a position to see other people's pain. before you run, if you haven't experienced that yourself, find it, seek it out, because only then will you be an authentic candidate. I was at an event with Nancy Pelosi recently, and she was describing having been to a bishop's office in South Africa, and on the wall of the bishop's office was a saying, a prayer, and it went like this. It said, when at last I stand before the face of God, God will say to me, show me your wounds. And if I have no wounds, God will ask, was there nothing worth fighting for? May you bear the scars and the wounds from battles that you have waged on behalf of others. This is why you are in the arena.